Hey guys, Paul here, and before we get started in this video I just wanted to put a bit of a warning. Like a lot of these Fireside Friday podcasts tend to be, this one gets quite deep and we end up going into some very difficult ground, I would say. It can be very troubling, very triggering for some people to kind of hear and talk about these things. So just a bit of a forewarning for you. In this video we talk a bit about psychosis, we go into sort of dealing with the aftermath of COVID, we talk about other mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety, all that kind of thing as well. So if there's anything there that you think might trigger you or you might have a hard time listening to, then maybe this is just one to avoid. There will be a link to an organisation called Mind in the description for anyone that does feel like they want to listen to this and kind of try and pull stuff from it, but there's also the resources there in case anyone feels that they need some extra support. So yeah, that's the sort of important bit out of the way. The other thing, just seeing as I don't normally do sort of fronts to videos, as I was editing this I noticed that the first 2 seconds of this video sounds like a fart, so enjoy that. All the best. You are live. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of my Fireside Friday podcast. With me this week I have Ed. Ed's come all the way up from England for a few days, and I figured that now would be a nice time just to kind of sit down, have a chat, and kind of share some thoughts and ideas. So Ed, why don't you start by kind of telling everyone a bit about how you got into bushcraft, who you are, what it is that makes you tick, that kind of thing?
Oh wow. Well, I suppose it goes back to my parents were scout and guide leaders. That's how they got together. So I think my first camp was at 3 months old, or something like that. Yeah, so there's pictures of me being bathed by a bunch of guides and stuff. Yeah, and it was just always camping, family holidays and stuff, and loved being outdoors, and it was old school canvas tents as well. Yeah. So that was really nice. And yeah, and then started sort of doing the drunken camps with mates, in the woods, which everyone disapproves of now. Yeah. But learn.
They have their place though, I think, those sorts of things.
Providing you don't leave a mess, yeah, for sure. But yeah, and I think once or twice we probably did, to my shame. But I've cleared up many since. So, yeah. And yeah, it just went from there, and then I think just the old story that everyone has is just came across Ray Mears on the telly and went, I like that, and it just rung a chord and stuck with me, and it just went from there. Just carried on going out doing things. Some of the mates I went drunken camping with carried on with me. Yeah. Maybe not to the extent that I've carried on doing it, but yeah. And yeah, just love it. It's sort of part of my everyday life now. Sort of part of me in what I do. Everyone at work keeps calling me Bear Grylls, but I keep saying no. If you're going to refer to me as anyone, not Bear Grylls. But yeah, I'm not going to drink my own piss.
The night is young, Ed.
No. Not when I've got some nice whiskey.
No, this is true.
So yeah, that's it really. I suppose it's most people's story of getting into it all.
How do you find? I mean, so obviously you and I both sort of love doing this. What is it for you that kind of makes you keep coming back to it? So for me, it's a lot to do with the clear mental headspace it gives me, and I don't mean clear as in I'm not thinking about anything. For me, it's it gives me clarity to think.
So like a reset sort of thing.
Yeah. So the problems I might be worrying about at work, if I'm overthinking,
I might come out to the woods, and because I'm not consumed by other things, whether it be work or just being on my phone or any of those things, it just gives me space to kind of breathe and think more freely. That's kind of how I put it.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely a part of it. I leave everything behind when I'm out here doing this.
Yeah.
And like I said, a reset is a good word for it. And like I said to you earlier, it was like my missus who said, "Have you not been camping for a while?" If I being a bit off or something, and you know, which is great, you know. So it's like, you know, don't mind if you go out to the woods and sort yourself out. Yeah, and nature is a good healer generally, and just being out here, like, it cuts the modern world out. And I do still sort of reach for my phone but nowhere near as much. And it's normally because I want to put a picture up or something of something that's going on here. So it's that keeps calling me out, I think, to it.
And were you like that? Were you good at checking yourself? And what I mean by that is, so like you said, your other half, she kind of points out when you've not been out recently. Did you find beforehand you could recognise a change in yourself when you hadn't been out as much, like before you had anyone to kind of signal to you?
Yeah, sometimes, but maybe not enough to be self-aware of it. Like, I was aware that I felt better when I came back, but I wasn't aware enough to sort of realise that I need to do that more often to feel better. I got diagnosed with Asperger's in 2015, 14, around then. Yeah. And I've become a lot more self-aware since then. I think that helped me become aware of myself, getting that diagnosis, and, you know, looking back at my past and it making sense with the diagnosis as well was made a...
So that's quite late on to get a...
It was, yeah. But it was an ex-partner that sort of pointed out, you might be, and sort of looked some things up and said, what do you think of this? And I kind of read it and went, that's me. And so it just went through the process there.
And how do you find that affects your life outdoors? Because, like, when I'm with you, when we're out in the woods doing stuff together, it doesn't really... There's nothing obvious that jumps out that suggests you're even...
A lot of people say, I had no idea. But part of the diagnosis was like, you've got it, but you've become very good at it throughout your life of learning coping mechanisms and strategies to just carry on as normal. And now it is normal for me. There's certain things, if we talk about it too much, I'll find it really hard to make eye contact. But that's because I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, of course. But, oh no, I do that too. Whenever I'm thinking about something, I just like stare at the ground or the clouds.
But I mean, in terms of the general conversation back and forth, you always sort of, people make eye contact all the time, and it's sort of a trait to not do that. And I used to do that a lot more than I do now. Not make eye contact. But if I think about it too much, I will suddenly not be able to do it. And
that's really interesting.
But yeah, it's that sort of. So I'm becoming more aware of myself more through that, and I had a bout of depression not long after that as well, which was quite intense. And I've spoken about it. Getting through that was, I became aware of myself, and now if I feel that kind of little bit of darkness creeping on the edges, I'm much more aware of it and can deal with it sooner rather than let it become an issue. So,
and you find, because so the other thing obviously is you run your own leatherworking business, as it were. And
a bit of a stretch calling it a business, but it'd be nice if it was.
Do you find that sort of creative energy helps? How do you sort of implement that into? So, do you find that helps with the depression? Do you find sort of your Asperger's diagnosis has any effect on your idea, the way you now make ideas, or how do those things sort of
I find it very calming to do it. It's a very focused thing. Probably like you, when you're creating something, you're in it. It pushes other stuff out. And so there is definitely that aspect to it. And I don't know about in terms of new ideas and things. But think I've always been creative, regardless, and my dad was always like a hands-on person. You know, I learnt a lot from him. You know, I can do basic plumbing and electrics and bits and pieces like that because he was head of maintenance at a hospital. So I learnt a lot from watching him and following him. Obviously, we don't have any bits of paper that say I could do it, so I couldn't.
Yeah, you know, of course. Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to go and do a heavy wiring job or something around someone's house, or I'm certainly wouldn't play with gas. But I can get my hands on with a lot of things, and so that's sort of my job, which I've been doing for the last 15 years, hasn't really involved that.
Yeah.
It's just sort of kept me going in other ways, but yeah, I do prefer to be hands-on doing stuff.
We had a cool conversation the other day there that was, it's either the day, like it was ages ago, yesterday I think it was, about you not wanting to get into leather work.
Yeah.
And then sort of finding yourself in it. How do you find, I mean obviously you do it now so you must enjoy it, but do you find like yourself searching for new things, or how do you like push yourself past what you do already? How do you seek out new knowledge and put it into practice? What's your technique?
Wow. Yeah, so the not wanting to do leather was like when I started getting into bushcraft as a actual thing, you know, like rather than I was doing bushcrafty things before I knew what it was.
Yeah.
And I kind of said to myself, I'm not going to be one of those people that sits there whittling spoons and making stuff out of leather. And I love carving, and I love making things out of leather.
Yeah.
And the leather thing just sort of came from, was like, oh, I might just make myself a little, I haven't got one here in hand, but a little drawstring pouch.
Oh yeah.
You know, that was it. And I just bought the smallest scrap of leather, and I thought I'd do that because that'd be cool to have stuff in. And then it was just sort of went from there. I was like, oh, I can make a little extra bit, and just bought little scraps of leather, like small A4 bits, and just started playing around and seeing what I could come up with. And the spoons, basically I was on a weekend course, and they said, right, we're doing some spoons, and I was like, great, I'll give it a try, and then just loved it. Again, focused totally, everything else disappears. Just having a knife and a bit of wood and just spin like this for hours is great. But in terms of new things, I think I'm always wanting to sort of expand upon what I do, and I've, as I said to you earlier, like bought myself a sewing machine.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to sort of get into the canvas
that'd be nice,
side of things. But I want to marry that with the leather as well.
Nice. Yeah.
So it'd be canvas and leather goods sort of together.
Yeah.
That's the plan. It's just, again, time management is the big thing on all these things. Is work life, home life, outdoor life, and workshop life.
Yeah.
Trying to sort of get all that and keep that running.
Yeah.
And getting balance. I always say that, always saying at home is like, you've got to find the right balance between things. I've got a partner who's understanding, but at the same time, to a point.
Yeah, this is it. You kind of have to meet that understanding with understanding, don't you, in some sense. And I think we're both quite lucky in our partners in that sense. Do you find, so you said she's done a couple of different things with you. Do you find it sort of nice having that companionship, or do you enjoy it just as much going out by yourself? Kind of, what's your preferred?
They're different. Doing it that way. Like it's different dynamic. Like if she was here now, it would be a different dynamic to what we've had the whole last few days.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Same if your partner's here.
Mm-hmm.
So it getting a bit of both is cool. I mean, she doesn't come out with me very often, but we go out for walks. We go out into the woods and walk through there, and she's quite good at going, oh, that's a so and so, and that's this and that.
Cool,
So she's very good with trees and plants.
Yeah.
And I'm not so good with trees and plants.
That's really cool. Yeah.
So yeah, it's different. That's probably the best way of putting it. And there's no preferable one, because one would be too much if it was just that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. Yeah, that's really cool. That's a really good way of looking at it.
That's how when with work we have a point where the students are there for half the year, split up into various terms.
Yeah.
and when it's not students, it's conferencing. And if it was all students, it'd be hell.
Just explain to people like where you work.
All right. Yeah. So I work at Cambridge University at one of the colleges. I'm a porter there. So like bowler hat and tie. And you saw me because you came in there, didn't you?
I did,
You came in and went, what the hell?
Unrecognisable.
Yeah, and I've been doing that 15 years. So sort of security, postman, parent, substitute, sort of. Is the briefest way to describe it, but yeah, in terms of saying, use that as an example with slides going down a bit. It's got variation throughout the year, and it needs that variation, otherwise it would become old and horrible very quickly.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think if you were out here all the time with me, for example, it'd be too much. So you need to have the variety of other people or yourself on its own, or your other half.
Yeah, for sure. And it's nice, like, one of the things I really enjoy is like having people out and getting to spend that time with people, is the fact that you get to kind of see the things they do that sort of go unnoticed normally, because they can be very small things, but they can make like all the difference to your sort of comfort outdoors. So for instance, we're in the middle of making some burgers just now for dinner.
I think they're probably quite well done.
I think they're pretty done, yeah. But I only had my stainless steel plate, and Ed suggested that we use the saw to kind of cut a handle for it, because it happens to be the right size. And again, something I never really would have thought about, but it sort of makes life that little bit more functional and easy. And that's one of the things I love about kind of coming outdoors and finding those things. And a lot of the times you can learn stuff, you don't even have to. A lot of learning goes unsaid, I think. You know, you just being someone's presence, you kind of get to see the little things they do and pick up on. And I find that really helps as my part of kind of the outdoors journey.
Yeah, well, it's that sort of absorption thing of you take what is handy and ignore the rest, and a little. I mean, I learnt that off a YouTuber.
Oh, well, there you go.
And so, but it's not something like I went, oh, must remember that. It's like it just goes in and stays. And that may be the Asperger thing as well. I do have a good memory. So for some things, I wish it would help with plant ID, because it doesn't. For that, I can't seem to get that in for whatever reason. But
shall we?
Yeah, let's dish up.
So we've already had one. Ed had a nice one, and I managed to roll mine into the wood ash.
Oh, there's still time.
So there's still time, but I'm looking forward to this one. There we go. And I was saying to Ed, this is like the most sort of chefy thing I've ever done outdoors. But Ed himself is actually a fantastic outdoor chef. And yeah, it's nice. Like, I think having Ed here kind of helps push me into that. Like, I think Ed does it, so I'll try and make an effort to reciprocate. And so yesterday we had sort of a ground oven cooked bit of trout. And you'll see that on Ed's video, which I'll link below this. But again, it's sort of, having people around, I think, just sort of helps push you, doesn't it, almost, and kind of just look at things
like
a
you
little
say,
bit
you'd be content normally with like a tin of something.
Yeah, just dog food, basically.
If you're on your own and it's making the effort. I think when I'm out on my own, I might do a burger for myself, but that'd be it. I'd literally just grill it and stick it in a bun with some mayonnaise, and that'd be it. It wouldn't have gone as good as you've done it here.
I don't know about that now.
Well, you had the mushrooms as well, which was awesome. So yeah.
So because it's.
Do you want a second bit of cheese?
Oh yes, please. So because you're like, so you're working with the university, right? And that's obviously quite a well-to-do job. It's a very nice sort of well-rounded job, and you're meeting a lot of people, I assume.
Yep.
Do you find that sort of part of your job has moved across into the bushcraft scene as well? Because, like, for instance, when we go to different events and things, so the bushcraft show, for instance, Ed is very good at looking after everyone and always make sure we're well fed and watered and everything else. Do you find that's like, what is it about that you enjoy doing?
As in the work side of it, or
just the sort of helping people? Obviously it's nice to help people, but kind of, is that a drive for you? Or?
I think I've always been that way. I think because my dad was kind of like that. He was he gave up his sort of scout troop just after I was born, because I think we moved. I don't know the exact timeline, but my mum still got involved with guide camps and things like that, and he would be the chef for it.
Okay, right.
So he would go along and give up his time, and he was always like that. If there was the old lady across the street who couldn't get out to the shops because she'd hurt her leg, he'd be the one who'd go, "Oh, tell me what you want, I'll go and get it for you." And
yeah.
So he was always that, and I think I get that from him.
So it's just sort of instilled almost.
Yeah, somewhat, and I do like doing it. And you know, you've been great the last couple of days, going, make sure you drink enough water, because sometimes we all need that little prompt for things. And I kind of, you know, like at the Bushcraft show, you've been working flat out all day. So, you know, what you last thing you want is as you put it, a can of slop. You know, at the end of the day, you want a good meal.
Yeah, definitely.
And you also don't want to sort of sit in the van just having it. So coming over to our camp and socialising with everyone, having some food, a bit of a drink, and a good chat. Yeah, I think is a good part. And I think I like hosting. Is part of it. You know, I've always been that way. I'm sitting in the wrong place now.
You are, yeah. It's it's interesting, isn't it? Because you sort of see a lot of times in different bushcraft circles, like people sort of take on roles almost, you know. And you definitely have that sort of like caring, almost protective, like sort of side to you when you're at these events and you're looking after people, and you have that anyway, just because you're a nice guy. But it's interesting sort of seeing that sort of community work almost, you know. Do you find there's any sort of community you bind to more than others? So for instance, with me being like into the primitive technology and stuff, is there a niche, a particular thing that really makes you like excited? And
no, I'm really keen on like getting in. I'd like to get into green woodworking and like, you know, make a pole lathe and all that sort of thing. That kind of excites me, but I wouldn't exclude anything, because that's what I did with this leather and the spoon carving initially. I think that was just my sort of closed ideas of like, I don't want to be like later on a fat beardy guy, you know, just whittling spoons. And nothing against fat beardy guys who whittle spoons, but it's sort of like,
there's a lot of them.
It was a bit cliched in terms of the bushcraft stereotype. I didn't want to fit into that category. And now is like, I think, you know, because that was years ago. You know, probably over 10 years ago when I thought that, and I sort of now obviously matured more and realise there's something for everyone out there, and if you want to be the guy whittling the spoons and that's it, then that's cool. There's nothing wrong with it. And but in terms of what would turn me on or turn me off more, is there's not, I don't think there's much that would turn me off in terms of the bushcraft world. There's nothing and it sort of sometimes gets linked together with bushcraft and prepping. And I've got nothing against people who are preppers. I think the doom, the end of the world is coming, you know, you must be prepared type. Zombie apocalypse is around the corner. I'm just a little bit like, I can't be doing with that. It's just a bit too full on for me.
I don't have time for that.
But you know, through lockdown, like the idea of stockpiling a lot of tin food in case we couldn't get out was you know, it's a great idea. I think everyone should have some backup food in their kitchen.
Definitely,
and not just go, you know, to the fridge and go, oh, it's empty, we'll have to go out. You should always be able to knock something together from what you've got in the cupboard.
So how did, following sort of speaking of COVID, how did that it was 2 years really, wasn't it? How did those sort of lockdowns and things affect you and your bushcraft and stuff? Because obviously down in Cambridge, it's different to Scotland in the sense that obviously we don't need permission to go out and walk around and explore, whereas in England obviously it's a lot more strict. Did you find that having those lockdowns and things, how did that sort of affect you, and how did you kind of work through it?
Well, I was actually in Scotland during lockdown.
That's right, of course,
my partner's youngest child was at University of Glasgow and was really ill just before it all happened. And it wasn't COVID. It was well, we didn't know what it was at the time. So she came up here to Glasgow and got a phone call saying they're going to do brain scans. So they don't know if it's a tumour or whatever. So I was like, okay, this is serious. I need to be up there. Came up here and sort of took a bit of time from work to come up here. And in that time, lockdown started. I luckily had a few bits and pieces with me that I just had in the car. But where I was staying was a minute's walk from a woods. So it was in Milgai, and I think it's Mogdock Woods. And there's a stream that runs through it. And I had camped. That's the very first solo camp I'd ever done. Was years before there, when we'd been up to see Melbourne Half's mum. Went out and did that. So
was it as scary the second time as it was the first? In regards to like your first solo camp usually being a little bit treacherous?
That wasn't too bad. I've had worse after watching it the night before. That was not a good move.
No.
But no, it was okay because I knew I could do it and I was allowed to do it being in Scotland. But that was years before lockdown. But I didn't camp out at all in lockdown. But I did go out. My hour to 2 hour exercise like every day sort of thing, and explored the area. And there's the West Highland Way starts there, and this woods has all sorts of castles up the top of the hill as well, and ruined castles. There's a lot to explore. So I was in my element really. I had a great, apart from the illness side of there, which again turned out to be a psychosis thing, so that was quite full on in that. But I think having that escape into the woods was really, really good. And if I'd have been at home, I'd have been working. Because there were still students to be looked after. So I had a good lockdown, really.
So was it your partner that was diagnosed with the psychosis?
Her youngest.
Her youngest daughter. Okay. And how did that? I mean, that must have been quite because that's a very scary experience, I'd imagine. I've come close to it a few times, just based on some entheogenic activities regarding mushrooms, and that sort of puts you in a bit of a psychotic headspace sometimes if you put yourself out there enough. And for me, it was like one of the most terrifying experiences I've had. One of the most profound experiences. But of course, I went seeking that. To have it sort of suddenly thrust upon you is a very different. How was that for you? I mean, that must have been quite challenging.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it seeing someone so distraught and distressed by what they're seeing and experiencing, and they thought that they caused everyone they'd love to die and rot away in front of them. I mean, that was sort of a big thing that came up quite repeatedly, and that happened. They watched it happen repeatedly, and they also then, as they kind of went further in, and obviously COVID happened, they thought they were the cause of it. So they thought it was their fault. They thought they needed to be arrested and punished for what they'd done, which wasn't anything. So and the trouble as well with it being COVID, they couldn't get the help they needed, even though they were in hospital, because they wouldn't allow like psychologists and psychiatrists to come in to talk to them because of the COVID, like the ward's shut, that's it. So it took longer. But then my partner being a nurse, they allowed them to take care of them earlier than they would have done normally, so they were released into our care. So we had them at the house we were staying at. And
so that must have been really...
A lot of questions kept being asked, and
really heavy.
A lot of repeated conversations, like 2 or 3 times a day, if not more, the same conversation, which could get a bit much. So the woods was...
I was going to say, so this is sort of where you find solace.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that was unimaginable. I won't even pretend I can put myself in that situation. But you're saying, so the woods is sort of has been your refuge. And one of the things I was going to ask you about is the fact that you enjoy making YouTube videos. So we've made one together. You've made one on your hammock setup.
Yeah.
Which is one of those fancy hammocks that looks like a spaceship.
You might just see it in the background behind me. I don't know if it'll pick it up. But,
so yeah, how did you get into stuff? So I dabble every every couple of years. I think it feels like at this point.
You have like a flurry, don't you? Every couple of years of doing it. Yeah.
So how did were you filming during that? Obviously not that particular incident, but were you going out filming, and how did that help?
Yeah, I did do a bit of filming there. I did hop back just before the actual lockdown, and got some more leave to go back. And when I did that, I grabbed my bag and threw my camera in it and a few other bits. I had a trail cam, and because I knew there was loads of deer in the woods.
Yeah.
So my head kind of like, you know, you're going to be out here for 2 weeks. I thought I was going to be up there, or about a week. I took a week's leave, and then that's when the lockdown started, and then it carried on. So I was like, make the most of it. You know, you're in this great woods that you don't normally get the opportunity to be in. It's full of wildlife. I mean, that time, I experienced spring properly for the first time in years. Because
you were telling me about this just the other day there. Yeah.
Down south, it's winter and everything's dreary, and then you get a heat wave and everything just buds instantly. There's no separation, there's none of this like, oh, that's starting to poke through the ground and things are starting to happen. At least that's what it feels like. Maybe because I'm busy at work, I don't notice it as much, like the actual change. But you know, leaves budding, you know, the buds coming out of the trees, and little things just starting to shoot up through the ground. And I noticed it so much more in Scotland because it just happened slower, because it was still cold, it was still late. I mean, when I drove up the first night, I drove through sleet in the dark. That was like going to the hospital, you know, that first night. And then and then it turned out, and because lockdown, the weather was glorious, wasn't it? Pretty much everywhere. Yeah. So thankfully, I think people would have really struggled if, you know, if it had been bad weather.
Definitely.
I just made a point of throwing my camera in the bag and doing a few videos there. But I'm a bit like you. I kind of do a flurry of them, and then I won't for a while. But then I might beat myself up, going, oh, maybe I should. But I don't know why I should, because I do it for the enjoyment of doing it, and hopefully there's people out there enjoy watching it.
Well, I certainly enjoy watching them.
But yeah, it's sort of it's hard to sort of. I don't want to just churn stuff out. You know, I want to make it something that people will want to watch.
Yeah, I think we're very similar in that sense. You know, so we're talking about sort of the difference between like churning out a video every week and really putting your passion into something. And I think it really shows in the videos as well. I think we're very similar on that front. So is it the fact that you enjoy the process of making the videos? I imagine that must be quite sort of therapeutic almost, for if your brain sort of racing a bit more than usual. Or...
Yeah, I certainly enjoy the making of it, and I enjoy the editing. It's like being creative again in a different medium. I think, and I can spend quite a long time on the edit, and I want to get the music right and it to fit, and I always think when they come out, could have done that better, or didn't like the way that went. I think because I'm my own worst critic in that sense. And in my head, when I go out, it's like, it's going to look like this, and it's going to be really cinematic, and and it's not, because, you know, I just don't, it's the time taken to do it, and and also right now we're having a conversation that's a bit more natural. Me talking to the camera,
it's very different.
Is a lot different, and I go a lot, and there's not a lot I can do to sort of stop that. I don't really know how. I mean, I could do take after take after take, but then it's not natural anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a learning process doing that. It's, you know, it will grow as it happens. I think I've become a lot more smilier on camera than I used to be, and become more natural than I used to be.
Definitely, yeah. I don't know about you, but I sometimes go back and watch like my first video I ever made, which was making like a little birch bark container out of a tube of birch bark, and it was like I guess in many ways it was a different person there doing that and filming that, you know, compared to the person I am today. it's nice having that sort of record. And for me, this is one of the reasons I love making videos, is having that record of like places I've been, things I've tried to do or have achieved, and then it sort of, for me, it helps with inspiring me to do something. So, for instance, if I'm having a bit of a couple of days of it where I'm depressed or I'm feeling down or my PTSD is playing up or any of those sorts of things, and I find that like I can usually coax myself out of it by saying, "Oh, we'll go and try and film a video on this," or "We'll see if we can film this," or even just to go out and just capture nice pictures of the flora and fauna that's around. Do you find like you're motivated by it, or does it just sort of happen to you every now and again? And then what's your sort of take on that?
It's sort of similar, I think. Is just the sort of drive to come out anyway. And sometimes the fact that I'm doing a video is like gives me more of a purpose to come out. Sometimes, although it shouldn't be that, but it sometimes helps you get out more rather than like, well, I could always stay in and do a bit more of something at home.
Yeah.
It's like, and I know I need to go out. It's like, well, if I do a video, then I have to go out to do the video. Although I have done the odd one in the workshop, but it's not something I want to sort of fall back on too much.
Oh, you can't give away your secrets then.
Well, I was just following my progress when I made a knife for the first time.
Oh, no way.
So it wasn't like I was giving away anything.
Yeah, oh, that's really cool. But it's those moments, isn't it? Being able to like making your first knife, for instance.
Yeah.
Being able to like document that. So, well, you seen it yesterday, but I've got a table of, I call it my table of things at home. And it literally is just a table covered in pieces that I've been given, pieces I've made, pieces I've traded for, found, whatever. And it's sort of ever changing. So, like it started off having some real like naff stuff on it, and over the years I've kind of slowly added to it and replaced the things that are on there. And every so often I'll take like one thing off because it's sentimental, but it's functionally it's useless or rubbish. And then you put the nice thing that actually works back in its place, and you go, oh, that was maybe like a couple of years worth of learning, but I can now like take this thing and replace it with this thing, and it's so much better.
Would you then store the thing you took off, or would it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, keep them around somewhere. Yeah, I'm quite good at. We sort of had that talk today actually about being sentimental with things, and so because we were firing a pot today again, linked to Ed's video, you'll see that there. And it's one of the biggest pots I've ever fired, and I've not had a good success rate firing recently because I've been using a different clay and all these different things. But that pot's been sat on that table for a while now, and I took it out so that we could fire it and get some pictures and film it and everything else, and it seemed to go pretty well. But what I was saying to Ed was my attachment to that particular piece isn't complete until it's reached its like final form. And I don't know about you, Ed, but that's kind of, whenever I'm making something, that tends to be where my head's at. I think maybe because my stuff can kind of explode, whereas leather pouches are a little bit more reasonable.
Yeah, well, a pouch is the easiest thing ever because it's literally a circle with some holes punched in it. But,
yeah. So do you find, because obviously you make a lot of really nice equipment, and again, all the links will be there, go and have a look. But you make some really nice equipment. Do you find that sort of you get as much satisfaction from that as you once did? Do you find you might take like the knife sheath you made for your first knife and then change it? Or is there sort of
there's sort of a basic, with something like a knife sheath, there's a basic sort of routine you have to go through. But each one will be different depending on the knife.
Yeah.
Like if I was just making, the first knife sheath I ever made was for Carl Snowden.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And
legend of a guy.
He really likes it. I look at it now, or pictures of it when I have it.
Yeah.
And go, oh my god. But all the elements were there.
Yeah.
But I just didn't really know what I was doing, and a lot of the time, so the stuff that I sell, I have all the prototypes are mine. I use those out in the field, so they're kind of made for me first.
That's cool. I like that.
And so the ones that I sell compared to the ones I have, some of them are almost identical because I've got it how I want it. and I don't think there's anything that needs to change. But others, there's maybe a bit more embellishment, a bit more detail on something. I run there's a, I can't remember the right name of for the equipment, but there's like something that cuts a groove in the leather.
Oh, okay.
And you can use it for like cutting a groove for stitching in.
Yeah.
But you can also use it for just marking round an edge, so you've got like a border. Yeah. On an edge, so it's like the leather just doesn't go to the end and just stop. It sort of goes to the end. There's a border and there's a little bit more leather, and then.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So it just gives it a lot nicer finish.
Yeah.
So some of the earlier stuff didn't have that on it.
Yeah.
And the newer stuff that sell does. So yeah, but you can get tired of certain things. Like I have just made a whole run of axe sheaths. Axe masks. Yeah. And I'm on the last one now. I'll finish it when I go home. And this isn't against anyone who's given me axes to do, because I enjoy doing it. And one of them was a double-headed axe, which I've never done. Yeah. And that, it's problem solving as well. I like, like how am I going to make this work? So I can do it one.
Was that Simon Glasgow?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Fucking Simon Glasgow, if you're watching, the axe man.
No, but it was good. I was pleased a bit. There was a couple of little bits. It's like, I could do that better next time. But hopefully it was good enough quality that he likes it and will use it.
Oh, definitely. Like you say, like you're always your own worst critic. You know?
Yeah.
And everything I've ever seen you make has been really nice.
And lucky enough to bump into Ben and Lewis Orford.
They're sweet, aren't they?
Yeah, at the Bushcraft show, and showed them the knife I'd made and the sheath.
Yeah.
And Ben, being the knife guy, was like, "That's your first knife. That's really good." Yeah, that's good. Which is great.
That's the holy grail of like compliments. Yeah.
And with Lois, because she does all the leather work, she was looking at that and she's saying, "Oh, did you use a machine to stitch that?" And I was like, "No, it's hand stitch." And she's like, "What? Really?" And I don't use a machine to stitch my leather. So and a lot of people said the stitching's really neat, and it's just
it is. Yeah.
I just I use a pillar drill and just go along and
that's so
then
cool.
Stitch it up. So that's to make the holes, and I just stitch it by hand. And
but like even if you get your stitching up to like machine quality, and people look at it and go, "Oh, is that machine stitched?" I think the fact that like as a customer, knowing that it's not, gives that product like an edge over something that is machine stitched, because you're putting so much more time and sort of meticulous detail into it. I think that sort of carries over into the thing you're making a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think it's. I think just having that. I think I wouldn't know how to machine stitch it anyway, especially when you've got like a knife sheath. You've got like where it folds over. Yeah. And you have a welt to protect the stitching from the blade as it slides in. So that's 3 layers of leather.
A welt, is that like the strip sort of between the 2 layers?
Yeah. Okay. And so that protects the stitching from the blade. Yeah. Because the blade will cut into the welt.
Of course.
So that's what it's there for. Yeah. But that then means you've got 3 layers of leather to go through. And I wouldn't know how to machine stitch it. You'd have to get a proper like leather stitching machine. You couldn't do it on a standard sewing machine. It would never make it through. No. And plus I saddle stitch it, so if one of the stitches were cut, it shouldn't unravel. You get a seam on a trouser or something, and one stitch comes out, and you pull it, it goes ding, 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 all the way along. This shouldn't happen with saddle stitching.
So saddle stitching is the one where you've got 2 needles and you're like coming from each side, right?
Yeah. And you're effectively tying a knot inside every stitch.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So as you do it, you loop round and it ties a knot within the leather.
That's really
each time. So if one does break, the rest should stay where they are.
And did you like? I think that's quite a common stitch, is it, in leatherwork?
Yeah.
And did you sort of come across that through looking up like tutorials, or did you just
pretty much? Yeah, it was YouTube videos. Lewis again on doing videos, and other people as well. I mean, YouTube is great for learning anything. I think I've learned how to change headlights on my car, and doing various bits and pieces like that. I've saved myself a fortune by pulling my car apart on a driveway and putting it back together. So it's YouTube's. Someone described it as YouTube can be your best friend in terms of getting knowledge and doing things. It's when you start spending hours watching cat videos that it can be a bit of a
but they're so good.
Oh, they are, but they've got their place. But, you know, it's like, oh, I'm just going to watch this video on how to fix my car, and then 4 hours later you're watching a dancing cat or something.
Yeah.
You know, you can get sucked down that wormhole of YouTube.
So what's your, like, and maybe you don't, so the reason I ask this is because it's one of the things I struggle with a lot is, like, planning and kind of having any sort of idea as to where I'm going to end up or what I'm going to end up doing. But do you have like a long-term plan? Do you have a list of like goals you'd like to achieve in this particular field of interest? Or
I would love to make more money from doing leather and the canvas stuff once that's up and running. I'm aware that's very few and far between. There's a few people who do it. I mean, Ben and Lois together, they're a team. He makes the knives, she does all the leather work. And there's a guy, he was at the Bushcraft show, and I can't remember his name or his company, but he does a lot of leather and canvas stuff as well.
Oh, is it Brian Terpshaw?
What's his company?
Journeyman Handcrafts?
Yeah. So I don't know him.
He's a sweet man.
But his stuff's really good. And what I'm trying to do as well is, like, I follow him on Instagram, I watch what he does, but I was like, I'm not going to go, I'm going to make that and sell it myself. I don't want to do that. I don't want to compete or just copy what other people do.
That's cool, man. I like that. I admire that.
I mean, a knife sheath's a knife sheath. You know, a tinder pouch is a tinder pouch. You can't reinvent that. So you are going to sell some things at the same.
You can't reinvent the wheel, as to say.
But you know, he does things like a canvas-backed mat, like a blanket type thing. You know, and things like that. I'm not going to do that because that's something he does. You know, that's more his.
That's really cool, man. Big respect for doing that. That's cool.
I don't want to just become like another guy out there. You know. If I ever, which is very doubtful, had a stall at the Bushcraft show, I don't want to be like him there and me there, and people going, well, they're the same. You know. So yeah. I like looking at what other people do and getting ideas, but then it will take me to a new idea from maybe that influence. That's sort of
really
where
cool.
I go from there. And yeah, I would love to make more money from that. I had a really dry patch up until a few days ago, and it was just my phone pinged, you know, a few times with orders, which is great. Although one was like literally was about to come up here, which is sat in my car. If you, I can't remember your name, but if you're watching this, your dangler is in my car, and it will be posted tomorrow.
It's come all the way up to Scotland.
Yeah, for a visit. It will be sent off from here. It's going to Bristol, if that helps. So, yeah, and that's hit and miss. Christmas, the lead up to Christmas, I thought, you know, that's going to be a prime time, and I made loads of stock. And I sold nothing apart from tool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no interest at all. Just after Christmas, it all started. So maybe people had their Christmas spending money, and maybe like leading up to Christmas, people don't say, "Oh, I want this" to their partner or friend or whatever. I don't know how. You know, you just never know. And I think also there was a general turnover, like last year and the year before. I've only been doing it a couple of years now, but this cost of living crisis has made a difference. I can tell because it's not happening. You know, people aren't. You know, this sort of. I suppose it's in a sense a luxury leather item. It's not. It's not something. It's not you necessarily have to go bushcrafting or whatever. It is not going to be bought because it's a luxury item. It's not. You know, you need to eat. You need to heat your house. And I get it. It's frustrating, but at the same time I get it. I'd much rather people looked after their families than bought a knife sheath off me because you know.
I think that says a lot about the quality of your work, though. The fact that people are prepared to spend that much, you know, and it's not. You don't offer, you know, the things you make aren't stupidly expensive. They're very reasonably priced for the work you put into them.
That was always hard. Like I would really struggle to know where to price something because I didn't want to like overdo it. But at the same time, obviously, I need to make the money for the materials. And a little bit for my time, you know. And if it was going to be a full-time business, then I've really got to factor all that in and make sure it's covered.
And so you're sort of, are you keeping your work life in the university and your sort of leather side hustle, if you like? Are you keeping those two things sort of separate? Are you trying to make the leather work run itself without you having to subsidise it from the work you do at the university? Or?
I mean, there's always going to be the initial outlay when you start something.
Of course,
like materials, tools, and all the rest. So that obviously that came from my pocket.
Yeah.
But again, it started as a hobby that's now grown into. It's not even a business, but something that makes a little bit of extra money.
Yeah.
So it kind of feeds back into itself. Like occasionally I'll pop out and buy a huge roll of leather, and that'll be paid for out of my pocket. But it'll eventually get paid back from the sales.
Turn it back. Yes.
I maybe I should be more diligent in what comes into what goes out, sort of thing. But I say it's not a proper business yet. If it ever came really suddenly picked up, I'd have to go right. I've got to start keeping some proper accounts.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I wouldn't even be breaking anywhere near the threshold of having to declare it.
And one of the things I really love about the things you make is you're saying all the leather is sort of sourced within the UK.
Yes, I believe so. So I get it from an identity store, and they do this sort of green and ethical sourcing.
Yeah, because you were saying it's sort of, it's a well sourced, ethically kind of.
The animals had a good life, and it's a byproduct from the meat industry. It's not just, some countries they just like kill the animal for the leather and probably don't use a lot of it. So it's all, I know even this could be controversial to some people. My brother's a vegan, so this doesn't always go down well. I can't have these conversations with him because it's be like, you just don't do it. End of, And it's like, if it comes to meat industry, that shouldn't be happening. End of. That's his sort of vegan argument. But
which is fair play to people that are vegan and have that sort of, but at least be open to dialogue, I think.
But that's another discussion altogether. But so I try and make sure that the leather I've got is a good quality. Two, it's come from an animal that's had a good life, and everything's being used from it. It's like that's what it should be, because there also within the meat industry, a lot of the hides from animals are literally just chucked.
Yeah,
they're not used at all, and so the amount of leather and things going out there is just being binned or burnt or whatever is ridiculous. So it's making sure everything's used, which is more respectful to the animal as
I think so. Yeah. Have you processed any of your own animals and made leather from sort of?
I haven't as yet. No. I'd love to do some tanning.
I was going to say, I think you'd be amazing at that.
I'd like to give it a go. I've been given some salmon skin leather.
It's one of the best.
Salmon skin leather. That's that was Ben gave it to me.
Yeah, salmon skins is one of the.
But I haven't done anything with it yet. I'm sorry, Ben, if you watch this, but it's on my to-do list, which is rather long.
Yeah. Oh, salmon. So I tanned salmon skin for the first time a couple of years back, and it's one of the nicest things to tan. It's so easy because it's so saturated.
He did it with egg. He tanned it with egg or something. So it's got this kind of really nice texture and smell to it.
It really is. It's beautiful stuff. And I think Brian actually uses it on one of his styles of coffee pouches he uses, and it complements it really well.
Well, I've yet to do something with this skin, but when I do, and if it turns out well, I may well try and incorporate that into some of the things
I think you could, yeah. Do you find because obviously leather work obviously involves quite a lot of leather. Do you find that there's other materials you try and bring into it, or is it mainly leather you kind of focus on? Or? Obviously, the canvas is going to be the next.
Yeah, I use antler for things in part of it, like the pouches have antler toggles on them, and I've also made a load of ferro rods, so there's the handles are antler there as well. So and I do leather pouches for the ferro rods to go on your belt if you want to go with that as well, or just the ferro rods. I've got a load glued up and ready and just need to list them on the site. But again, it's all these things that I'd like to sort of do. So the whole thing of the woodland craft side of the enterprise, if you want to call it that, it is all things that could be used for going out in the woods.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just have to be leather or canvas, and so it could be using something which is antler.
Yeah.
So sort of natural materials, and even wood. You know, don't know what I would incorporate. Maybe wooden handles again for ferro rods. I've got some nice bits. I have some more knife blanks, which I want to make some handles for, but I don't know if they'd be good enough to sell. It might just be gifts.
Yeah.
And I've done. I rehandled a knife for JJ as well.
I remember hearing that. Yeah.
He had one that he just didn't like the way it felt in his hand.
Yeah.
And he saw mine and went, "That's what I want."
Yeah,
so I just kind of did that for his this
brilliant.
blade. It was a hoofing great blade, but it was a nice thing. And I gave it these really nice red liners, which I had.
Yeah.
And it just popped with the yew wood as well. So
I'll give up a nice bit of light. Oh, we'll chuck it right there. Yeah, so kind of like, obviously we've kind of talked a lot about different ideas and projects and things, and all of those require time to some degree. How do you manage your time? Do you have a hard time divvying up the time you dedicate to one thing or another?
Yeah, I've always struggled with time a little bit. I get a lot of time off work because of this. I do shifts.
Yeah.
And so quite often, and I've got into a habit lately of doing this, is I'll get up, say I've half gone to work, I'll make a coffee, and I go, I'll just do a bit of catch up on YouTube. And I'll sit down and put a video on, and I'll try and catching up on videos that I have yet to watch because they're kind of on my watch list.
Like from your friends and stuff like that.
Yeah, or people I follow generally, and you know, or things that I find interesting as well. You know, so this list gets bigger and bigger because more people put out more stuff and go, watch later. I'll just keep doing that, and it goes on the list. I mean, it's on something like 600 videos now.
Oh wow!
Stupid. A lot of them I won't watch. I probably won't. I do have a clear out every now and again, going, and I don't actually won't get around to watching that. But I'll go, I'll watch a bit of this, and I'll try and find something that's like about 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
And then I finish my coffee, so I'm gonna make another one and come back, and then I've still got some coffee left, so I might start another video.
Yeah.
And I get,
so
you know, sometimes it's like I've got things I need to be doing, and I'm watched nearly an hour of YouTube. It doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen. I can be.
What is it that you think that sort of distracts you? Why is your time management so difficult, do you think?
I don't know. Procrastination is probably a big part of it. But other times I can get up and, you know, I've got that day off and there's stuff I want to get done in the workshop, so I'll literally have a coffee and then go straight in the workshop and treat it like a 9 to 5 almost, and you know, if it did take off, I'd have to do that. You'd have to get up, eat coffee, you know, the usual things that everyone else does, and then go into the workshop and do what needs to be done.
And is that sort of the dream, having that sort of take off and then become your sole?
That would be awesome. I would love that. But at the same time, you know, we're kind of looking to maybe move up to Scotland. Yeah. And but maybe get somewhere with a bit of land for like, I don't know, a year or something like that to do. You know, to get income, because for the house prices in Cambridge are just ridiculous, but it also means if we move up here, we'd be a lot better off, and could buy somewhere with a bit of land as well. And but if we got an income coming from, like, I don't know, a couple of glamping pods or or whatever, something like that. You know, I don't mind having to make beds and clean a bathroom if that was, you know, just that was my job, and then go in the workshop and, you know.
Do you ever worry that?
Stuff.
Yeah. Do you ever worry that? If that were to happen, so let's say that the leatherwork does suddenly go kind of full time, do you ever worry that might kill the thing that you enjoy about it? The only reason I ask is because it's something I've experienced before, And I'm just curious how other people sort of
It's
work
possible. I think if you're making just one thing, I think anyone's going to get sick of it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
But the fact that like I can't remember how many items I have on my Etsy store at the moment, but there's more to come.
Link in the comments.
And you saw the prototype to a foraging pouch today, the other day.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's not available yet, but that I'm aiming to get that out. So I'm always aiming to put new things out. Some things don't sell at all. Like I've sold one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I've sold none of. I thought, because my first knife was a Mora knife.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. They're great knives.
They are, yeah.
And I always wanted to pimp it up a bit. So I thought a nice leather sheath. So you've got a nice, good knife, but a nice leather sheath on your belt.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and that's like, showed other people that, and they were going, that's really nice, that. So I made a few of them, put them on Etsy. No one wants it.
So
but
weird,
maybe
isn't
it's
it?
because the sheath is, because the leather and the time put into it is more than the knife. I mean, you can pick up one of those knives for 15 quid.
Yeah, you can. Just a companion sort of thing.
Yeah. And maybe it's that. Someone's like, well, my knife's only worth 15 quid. I'm not spending 30 quid on a sheath. But then also, I don't know how they do it, but there are people on Etsy who would do a knife sheath for a Mora, for example, for a tenner. I'm like, you're not even hardly covering your cost, let alone your time to make it.
Yeah.
And does it fit? Is it leather? Is it dog? What is it?
Is it dog?
Is it got it from China? I'm not saying, I'm not doing this. Say everything comes from China is dog, but you know what I mean. It's like, you just don't know. You don't know where it comes from. And
no. And there must be something. It sort of definitely hints something shady going on when you can pick something like that up for a tenner.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, if you get a Mora knife sheath from me, your knife will kind of click in and lock because it's molded to a Mora.
Yeah.
Well, these other ones, the generic ones, you just push a knife in.
Yeah.
So if you're walking along, having to jump over a ditch,
yeah.
you don't want your knife to just come out and not even notice until you're up the road.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I'm trying to get with my things. Is like, it's an item that will look after your item if it's for that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of making padded bags for these, because I transport that like clips to my pack, but one day I'm going to smash it.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, and sometimes I take two out depending on where I'm going, how far I'm going, and I make a pouch for that one as well.
Yeah.
So it's to protect that.
There's a UCO lantern to my right here, and Ed makes these really cool pouches to kind of hold all the bits for it. So there's one that holds a reflector to it. Is that
Yeah, I think the reflector is that on that. It is on that.
Yeah, that one there. Yeah.
So it holds that as well. So it's all in one unit. And that came about because I used to keep the reflector loose in my bag. I'd reach in to get it, and the sides of them are really sharp. I literally just sliced my hand out.
Razor, yeah.
So it's to protect you as well as that. So yeah. So it's about time for a drop of whiskey.
Ah, very nice. So Ed, being the honorary Scotsman that he is, has brought a quake. And a quake, for those that don't know, assuming you haven't already watched Ed's video, which you should do, by the way, is like a little ceremonial sharing cup. And I think we're definitely losing the light, and we're definitely both pretty tired, so I think we're going to slowly kind of bring this to an end. But what better way to do it than with a wee dram, as they say.
That as far as getting warm, isn't it? We have to both moving further away from it. Yeah, we got the Talisker, the good stuff as well. So.
Yeah, definitely. So
what's cheers again?
Sláinte.
Sláinte.
Yeah. But yeah, so everything we've been talking about just now. Thank you, sir. So Ed's Etsy, his YouTube channel, links to all his social medias and things will all be linked down below. What's the name on all your socials, Ed?
It's EC Woodland Crafts.
Yeah. So if you can't be bothered looking for the link, keep an eye out for that on Facebook or YouTube, Instagram, all those things. And definitely check it out. So we've known each other, how long now? 3 years, did we say, thereabouts?
Yeah, we met at the Wonder of Wood.
Yeah.
Back in Cambridge. Yeah, it was about 3 years ago. 3 years ago will be next month, I reckon. So yeah. And yeah, we just kind of hit it off straight away.
Yeah.
I knew of you because you have a sort of a presence in the bushcraft world anyway.
Notorious for all sorts of bad.
And you were going to be doing a course that I couldn't make it to.
Yeah.
Out Wisbeach way. So I sort of, had heard of you, and then we just met and just started chatting because we were literally put on the same team working together.
We were,
So I just started chatting, and you were keen on, interested in what I was doing. I was interested in what you were doing, and
yeah, definitely, yeah.
Just, I think there's not many people I've met in the bushcraft world that I kind of thought, I'm not sure about you, like you do in life. Is sometimes you just get that vibe of people, and I can't really think of anyone in the bushcraft world that I've got that from.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be people who you don't get on with, or eventually, or you go, they're all right, but then they're not someone I want to sit and have a drink with.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key with life anyway. It's like the whole thing is, if you cast them as a friend, would you have a drink with them? And if you kind of go, no, actually, are they really a friend or an acquaintance? So that's one way.
Yeah, I think we're very similar in the sense that the word, like the term friend, gets like chucked around quite handily a lot of the time. And I think we're similar in the sense that, like, for me to call someone a friend really is quite a big deal almost, just on a personal level, because I struggle with that whole kind of commitment to time and people and that sort of, just based on my own experiences. And so I think you're absolutely right. It's been amazing kind of getting to meet all people in the bushcraft community. I remember one of the first events I went to, and I've still got equipment around me now that was gifted to me then, and that was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And it just goes to show just how kind and sort of welcoming people are in the community. And it's nice, and the fact that kind of it brings people like me and Ed together. So although we're in different parts of the world at the moment, we know each other well enough to kind of want to make the effort to come and spend time together.
Oh, if I didn't like you, I wouldn't have driven 9 hours to come up here.
Exactly, yeah.
That's I think that's sort of that's a measure of it as well. Is like you're prepared to travel to see these people, and it's always yes, isn't it? Because you want to you value their company. So that's the big part of it, and we're all interested in the same stuff, really.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own take. Some like the retro equipment, some like ultra lightweight equipment, but they still want to go out in the woods and do the thing. And there's the primitive pottery and metalwork, whatever, carving. There's so many different sides to it. And I remember years ago, my missus sort of going, you've got so many hobbies. I went, no, it's one hobby. I've just got this big umbrella of stuff within it. And so it's sort of, there's so many sides, and and you can change as well between them. And like you go for a little journey that way, and then it takes you into something else.
Yeah,
and who knows? I might start making things out of clay. I would only do it for just like a little bit of fun, but I can't. It's
well, if you ever want to, man, you know where I'm at. So it'd be an absolute joy. But no, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It is. It's just that kind of space. And it's been a real pleasure getting to spend these past 3 days with you.
It's been great.
Really appreciate you taking the time just to come up here, because like I said, you're one of the few that's made the fabled journey of.
It's Scotland. Why not? I mean, that's if you've got to go to Scotland, you've got to, well, especially if you live down south, you're going to be driving. But it could take me 8 hours to get to Cornwall if the traffic's bad, and so it's it's not much difference. And
no, I really appreciate it, and it's been a real joy getting to spend this time with you and chat with you.
It's been great. It's gone quick. I can't believe I'm going home tomorrow, and it feels like I only got here yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, it was the day before yesterday, but it's just fine.
Yeah.
And I had obviously you get sort of, I don't know about you, but I have sort of preconceived ideas of how things might go and what might happen, and it rarely turns out like that, because you just kind of make stuff up in your head.
Yeah.
I didn't even know where we were going.
Yeah.
Like it was down to you on the locations. This is the second one. The first one we didn't film or anything.
Yeah, no, it was just
a couple of photographs maybe, but
poor Ed had driven 9 hours, so I figured you know, the best thing we could do is just go somewhere, set up the hammocks, and try and get a night's sleep rather than making the poor boy work even more. But no, it's been really good, and hopefully the first of many for sure.
Yeah, I'll have to get you down my way again.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, I know you travel, so you talk about time and things, but you give your time up and travel to so many different events and things because you get invited to here, there, and everywhere. And
yeah, I'll get around, yeah, for sure. But no, it's worth it, you know, because you get to come and spend time with.
Yeah.
You know, people like you, our friends, the circle that is the community, and people that are outside that circle as well, getting to meet people that are completely new to it all, and sort of sharing that with them as well that's one of the things I really love.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, you know, when we were at the Bushcraft show, there's that guy and his son who joined us in the evening for the meals and things. And we met him the year before at the Bushcraft show, and that's his first time ever going there, doing anything Bushcraft. They liked the idea of it.
Yeah.
And you know, and the next year they're coming and bringing bottles to share with everyone, and sitting and eating meals with us, and you know, really enjoying, you know, actively looking for us to say hello to us in the show. Yeah. You know, so it just, you know, I think it just goes to show the sort of type of people that we all are.
Yeah. It's a very powerful thing, isn't it? And I think that's sort of one of the reasons I really love this whole fireside chat thing. He says getting smoked to death is the fact that, like, there's something about being outside, being around a fire, or even not even having the fire, just being under the trees is enough. And it seems to just really open people up to, I don't know, it's like you reach another level of genuine. It's like peeling off a layer of, you know, the mask that society paints on people that makes you think this is who this person is, this is what they do, those are the things that make them important, when really you kind of, this situation allows you to kind of peel that off and, you know, see who's underneath and why those things are the things that they decided to fall into and chase.
Yeah, and there is, I mean, like, sat around the fire talking, it goes back to year one, really, doesn't it?
Almost. Yeah, it goes back a bit, yeah.
So I think it's kind of in our DNA to do it, and we're drawn to it. You know, I have.
Will you search through the lonely earth for me? Climb through the briar and bramble.
May have gone as far as.
I'll be your treasure.
But it's not quite the same. You know, we've done it once or twice.
I felt the touch of the kings and the breath of the wind. I knew the call of all the songbirds. They sang all the wrong words.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm waiting for you.
So that's going to do it, guys.
I'm waiting
all the links
for
to
you.
Ed's YouTube, Etsy, websites, blah, blah, blah. All be down there. Definitely go check them out. He's a real sweetheart. He's just a great person. So show him some love. Really, really well. Good. That's going to do it for us. We're going to sit back, maybe a little further back from the fire.
Yeah, it's starting to get very hot in there.
So we're
Let me swim through the briny
but I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this. And,
roll along
look
the
forward
ocean's
to
floor.
sharing you in the next one.
I'll be your treasure.
I'm getting old, man. Getting old.
I'm with the ghosts of the men who can never sing again. There's a place, follow me, where a love lost at sea is waiting for you, is waiting for you.